Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to go ahead and set up the Raspberry Pi for the Freenove Hexapod Robot Kit. This is a Pi 3B Plus and we're going to use a 16 gig SD card. For the instructions, we're going to follow the instructions in the tutorial PDF as much as possible. However, we're going to do a headless setup to see how well that works. There won't be installing VNC, we won't be RDPing, we won't be doing any of that into the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so let's get started. First thing we need to do is go to RaspberryPI.org. So in our browser, we'll open our browser, go to RaspberryPI.org, and once in there, you'll click on Software. And then on the main page, if you haven't already done so, we need to download the Raspberry Pi OS imager. I've already downloaded it on this machine, but you would just select which OS you want to download it for. I'm on a Mac. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Raspberry Pi imager. I'm going to choose our OS, which is the very first one here. Then insert the SD card in our SD card reader. And we'll choose storage. There's my 16 gig storage right there. And then we will write. Answer yes, all data on this card will be deleted. So make sure you select the correct storage. If you noticed, there were 3 options in mine. I have an external hard drive connected to this. So make sure you select the correct storage media. All right, enter your password. And give it a few minutes and it will be done. Okay, now that the write is done, just click on continue. And the next thing we need to do is the headless portion of the configuration, or the initial part. First thing we're going to do is open terminal. Inside terminal, we're going to need to change the directory to the boot partition. Before we can do that, we have to eject the SD card from the SD card reader, put it back in, and then in Finder or Explorer or whatever, you'll notice a new drive. In our case, we have a boot. So in terminal, we want to do cd/volumes boot. First thing we're going to do is type touch SSH. This creates an empty text file that tells the Pi to enable SSH on boot up. In a Windows PC, you could use a program like Notepad++. I wouldn't use Notepad. For this, it probably wouldn't matter because you're not saving any content to it, but if you're editing or saving content to a file, I would use Notepad++ over Notepad. The next thing we want to do is create a file for the Wi-Fi settings. I'm going to use an editor called VI. The documentation talks about using Nano. If you've not used an editor in Linux or on Mac, Nano is probably the best choice. In this case, I'm using VI, wpa_supplicant.conf to create that new file and put it in edit mode. Now we need to add some data to the file, and I have it right here. This is just tells the system how to connect to your Wi-Fi. Gives it your SIDs here. We'll change that in a moment, and your Wi-Fi password. So over here, we hit insert, paste that in, and then we will change or enter the password here, or use your SSID, I'm sorry, and then your password. Okay, now that I have my password entered, we need to save the file. So in VI, it's escape, : W for write, Q for quit. In Nano, I think it's Control Z or Control X or something in that nature. Now that that file's saved, all we need to do is eject the SD card. So we can go back to Finder, hit eject, remove the card. Okay, now we just need to insert the SD card into the Pi. Give it some power. And give it a chance to boot. The first boot's going to take the longest. It's going to do it has some initialization steps that it takes. First would be, I think it expands the disk, reboots, and then does some other stuff. I'll show you the boot sequence as well, so you guys will see what it's doing, since we're doing this headless. So red means power, green means activity. So have some activity there. Alright, so it's booted up. As you heard, my printer just went off. So that means that it is booted up. It is at the Raspberry Pi desktop. And the reason the printer goes off is I believe it does some sort of printer discovery with the printer drivers that are in it. So that shows that it's on the network. To get the IP of the Pi so that we can connect to it, one thing we can do in terminal is type ping RaspberryPi.local, and in this case it comes back with our IP, so we know it's on the network. Now we can connect to it either with the IP or that same DNS name. In this case we'll just do the DNS name, SSH pi at RaspberryPi.local. Okay, it's asking if you want to continue connecting. say yes. Then enter the password. The default password is Raspberry. Now that we're in it, first thing we want to do is change the password. You change the password by typing PASSWD, enter the current password of Raspberry, enter your new password, and re-enter your new password. Okay. Next step we want to do, and it doesn't mention it in the documentation, it's probably good to go ahead and do it, is update it. Sudo apt-get update. Next, once that's done, you can arrow up, and we want to change it to sudo apt-get upgrade. Enter. This command takes it a little bit longer to run. Answer yes. Let it complete. Okay, we're done. Next thing we're going to do is just give her a reboot. Yes, sudo reboot. Give it a second. Okay, let's connect. It should be up by now. Yep. Okay, now we're connected. So next thing we want to do is find in the instructions. We've gone through installing Raspberry Pi OS. We're not doing VNC or remote desktop setup, so we're just going to go right past those. For Windows systems, it's PuTTY that you want to use. There's other programs out there, but PuTTY's the most common for getting your SSH session into the Pi. Still laying RDP still. Windows there. Pass. There. They're in RaspberryPI config. That's the next thing we're going to, well, no, we're not going to do it quite yet, but we'll get there. So they're running RaspberryPI config, and then in here is where they're enabling VNC, right? Why they didn't just go ahead and enable the camera and I2C, why they were there, I don't know. Because they wanted to show you the GUI side, but since we're staying out of it, we're moving forward. In fact, we'll probably go just config that here anyway. Okay. We're going to pause here and then go back to the Pi. And let's just turn those on. Sudo rasp-config. And here you'll just go to interface, enable camera, first option, yes, okay, go back to interface, go down to I2C, yes, and I'm just using arrow keys, so that's all you need to do. Okay, that's all we've got done there, so we'll go to finish. And would you like to reboot now? Yes or no? We're going to just tell it no for right now. Okay. Next thing we need to do is clone their Git repository for their software and Python software that they have. So we can just copy this line from the PDF, paste it in, hit enter. Do its download thing. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, download's done. Sorry about that. Next part is we want to check the Python version. So to do that, we'll slash user. Well, you can just type Python. We're to version 2. Control Z to get out of there. So we want to change that to version 3. So slash user slash bin. And in the instructions, they're telling us to delete the Python file. Well, it's not a file, it's a link. I'll show you. ls-la. You can see it's linked to Python 2. So we will go ahead and delete it. Sudo rm python. And then you're going to create a new link to Python 3. So sudo ln-s python 3 to Python. Okay. And then we can look at it again. And this time you'll see it's linked to Python 3. We got some sort of pause there, so we'll try that again. Okay, now you can see it's Python 3. Control Z to get out of there. Okay, done that. This is where they're telling you shortcut keys, tab key, up and down arrow keys. Those make getting through the shell pretty easy. This is where they're enabling I2C camera, and they're doing it in the GUI. So RaspberryConfig has a RaspberryPi configuration in the GUI. They're just doing the same thing we did. Would you like to reboot? They didn't reboot either. Next thing we need to do is create this black list. It says other than 4B, so I'm assuming the 3B needs this done. So what we'll do, cd actually we'll just edit it from here, vi /etc/mod probe.d /snd_black_list.conf. Okay, and then in this file we want to add black list snd_bcm 2835. Save it and quit. Ooh, okay. I forgot to do something very important. You have to sudo insert black list snd_bcm 2835. Okay. Be sure to add sudo in front of your edit command or you won't be able to save the file. Next thing we need to do is edit the config text file. And that again will need to be done with sudo. sudo/boot/config.text. Sorry. How to type your edit command. Alright. And here we're going to look for the BCM load part of this file and comment it out. So let's just search for snd_bcm. Find it, it's right there. And we just want to comment this line out by putting a hash in front of it. Save and quit. Okay, next thing we want to do is install their software. Okay, so we are in our home directory, but if you're not, the instructions they provide will put you there. So cd:/free. You can tab complete that, code, tab complete that, hit enter. Now you're in that directory. sh./build.sh. Okay, scrolling down, now we need to run the setup program that has to be ran with sudo. Sudo python setup setup.py, hit enter. Okay, it says here run setup, install PC5 libraries. Please restart at the end. If you get an error, run it again. Okay. Hopefully we don't get an error. Okay, now that's done. Let's go ahead and reboot. Sudo reboot. Okay, it should be booted up by now. We'll check it out. SSH, enter our password. Yes. Alright, so that concludes the setting up of the Pi portion. Now we'll go back and see you at the Hexapod build. Thanks for watching.